Albion Online is one of the hardest MMOs to get into, especially for new players. So today, I'd like to talk about the hardest parts about being a new player in Albion Online. Let's get into it. For those of you who don't know, Albion Online is an MMO sandbox. This basically means that there is no clear-cut story or guidance to get you from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. The world is basically your oyster. And this can be a real big problem for a lot of people, merely for the fact that it just increases the scale so much of this game. There's no quests, no markers, just your brain and the endless possibilities. And this can be a dangerous thing. Imagine a world in front of you and no direction on where to go. Kind of like real life. And this leads to something called analysis paralysis. When you have all these options laid out in front of you, it's really hard to pinpoint one thing to do. You end up getting overwhelmed and don't do any of them. And that can lead to a real big struggle for many new players who want to get into this game. However, this can definitely be a strength of the game as well, because there are so many things to do. Eventually, once you pick one path to go down, it can lead to just a ton of content. For example, if you want to just strictly gather, you can do that. You can go collecting different types of wood. You can go trying to skin certain animals. You can go fishing. That can just be a whole session of playtime by itself. Are you a dungeoneer? Do you want to try and solo a certain dungeon? Are you trying to go into corrupted dungeons, which also have PvP elements? There are many different avenues you can go down, and that in itself is a strength coming from no guidance. But Albion Online, you can really choose your own path, and it is really the build your own adventure that a lot of games preach. Second hardest thing about being a new player in Albion Online is no doubt the PvP system. You always have a target on your back, whether you're a new player, experienced player, you have no gear, you have amazing gear. You are just constantly a target for people who just want to be ruthless and make your life miserable. I know my first time in the Black Zone, I was constantly targeted by people for no reason. I had absolutely terrible gear, but for some reason, everyone had it out for me and I could not escape them because I just simply didn't know how. And this honestly makes it tough because there's so much great content out in the Black Zones. You get your best rewards out in the Black Zones by doing certain gathering missions or a lot of team missions, a lot of dungeons that you can do out in the Black Zone. And this makes it really hard, A, if you're a solo player, or B, if you're just not really into PvP like that. So that can really deter, and it does deter many players going out into the Black Zone. A lot of people spend their entire time in the game in the blue or yellow zones because they just don't like PvP. That in itself is something that really turns a lot of players off from the game. Now this really leaves you with two options. First, find some experienced players to play with. And this isn't really as hard as you might think. A lot of people are willing and want to get you involved in this game and get you knowledgeable in this game the way they are because they genuinely love the game so much. So finding a group of experienced players to play with who can teach you about the game, give you good gear, and also get you exposed to some PvP without that much of a risk of losing all your stuff because they can help you get it back. The second thing is you just got to get good. That's one thing that a lot of games and a lot of players aren't comfortable with. They just want to be good at a game without putting in that work. And Albion Online is one of those games where you got to put in that work, man. Grind the silver to afford some tier 7 gear, tier 8 gear, and learning your movesets, learning how to play the game. You learn what weapons work for your playstyle best. Are you into poking? Do you want to use the bow? Do you want to use a spear? Are you trying to be more tanky? Do you want to use a mace? What is your playstyle? And that gives you a more rewarding experience at the end of it because you overcame those people who are genuinely trying to ruin your time in the game. Maybe not intentionally, but they're making your time as a new player much harder. So overcoming that challenge really makes it that much more rewarding and gets you that much more into the game. Finally, and this is similar to the first point I made, but the scale of the game is just so overwhelming. There are so many weapons, so many armor sets, so many mechanics, so many ways of playing. It's really hard to just compartmentalize. That's a big word. There's a very big learning curve that you have to get over in order to enjoy this game, I think, in a certain capacity. When I jump into the game, I feel like I just don't know what to do. But once I take it one step at a time and focus on one thing day by day, It really helps bring you back down to earth. For example, one day I purely gathered. I was like, I'm gonna try to strictly cut wood. I know it doesn't sound fun, but it's a break from the super serious, like, hardcore PvP, hardcore dungeoning. Gives you a chance to kind of relax and turn your brain off, to really take it one step at a time. Plan out what you're gonna do. Maybe one day you want to gather and, just cut wood all day. But the great thing about it is, if you want to do that, you can do that for 30 minutes and then jump into some PvP. Or you can do that for 30 minutes and just go exploring. Or do that for 30 minutes and then go get a certain weapon, try it out. You're like, oh, you know what? I don't really like this weapon. And then go get another weapon and try that out. It's really important to treat Albion Online for what it is. It is a giant sandbox where every day can be a new adventure. And that was a big moment for me to learn. At first, I felt extremely lost in this game. It just felt way too big, and I genuinely didn't want to keep playing. But once I accepted the game for what it is supposed to be a journey, a choose your own path, and give you the opportunity to not follow a preset path, which so many games out there force you to do. So I think if you take each step one at a time, if you try to find friends or try to get good, and if you focus on changing your mentality from being constantly handheld to creating your own adventure, this game can really be an amazing game for you to try out, and you can get really good at it, or just even enjoy it. You don't even have to be good at it. There's no reason for you to have to be good at every game you play. You can just enjoy this game. Finally, if you are struggling with Albion Online, let me know in the comments. I really want to hear all about it. Please subscribe if you want to see more Albion adventures. If you want to see more RPG content, MMO content, I'm here for it. And thank you all for watching. Peace.